Folks, hello and welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, a bartender in the OSR. Yes, I am not at my normal abode. I am in the Poconos. With us, as always, is my once-a-week work spouse, Bad Mike Battalato. If he leaves early, it's nothing personal against you all. And with the weight of the show on his shoulders is the one and only Jim Kitchen.
We got to add a fourth just to kill that joke.
I love it, though. I love it.
Mm-hmm. If I leave early, it's because I hate these two guys. So let's see if I leave early.
And we love you.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be mean.
Oh, was that out loud? Oops.
Inside voice. My inside voice spoke outside. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Well, next week we're going to have Bill Barsh of Barshly fame, pace setter. He's going to tell us about a lot of projects that coming up right before North Texas, when a couple of projects will be coming out. Actually, they will be released at North Texas as he usually does every year. But tonight we do not have a special guest, but we have lots of interesting developments in the game world to talk about.
Yeah. We haven't done a This Week in Gaming Stupid in a while.
Oh, and so much stupid. So much stupid.
The stupid washes over me like a tidal wave. And amazingly, it seems like there's just it's always as if there was one person that is the tectonic plate of stupid that just sets the stupid in motion.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
just saying.
Mike, you were going to be the dealer tonight, so it's dealer's choice. Which of the gaming stupid shall we initially?
Well, I'm only going to be able to be on an hour tonight, so
you want to get your.
I really want to talk about our friend, otherwise known as the dice roller, or you could say the pencil roller. We could call it the pencil dice roller, who managed to do something that's really difficult to do in our fractured society, is unite the entire gaming world against him in 1 week. And we're talking conservatives, liberals, progressives, anarchists, communists, Christian nationalists. I mean, everyone, just
Illinois Nazis. I mean, everybody.
Everybody just all came together in this beautiful 1970s commercial of hugging and loving, and they all had one person in their sights, and that was the pencil dice roller.
I'd like to teach the world to hate.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Dice roller.
Walking up with their pencil dice, holding it up.
Angry. It doesn't matter what flag they fly.
Because even though he had been doing this behavior for several months, and we had been keeping track of it, it finally broke to the masses. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you have something simmering beneath the surface, and then something happens, and you don't even know what that event is. But all of a sudden, it just blows up. And this blew up spectacularly, because not only did InWorld get hold of it and run an article on it, but suddenly all these people who really weren't aware of the Pencil Dice Rollers page realized there was bios written about themselves with fake pictures and false information in the bio by somebody they had not talked to and not given any permission. Not that they need to give permission. This is, fair use, whatever. But it's false information, and it was created by AI. It was false information created by AI.
Yeah, it's very amusing. What I actually liked is that the website in question also has a news feed. So the news feeds from one of the places it feeds from is NWorld.
Oh boy!
So on the site in question, there is an article from NWorld highlighted about the site in question.
Oh, sweet.
It's
so delicious.
It is quite entertaining. Now, I'm gonna right now, or I should say earlier today, the individual in question. I'm using individual in question because individual in question likes to threaten lawsuits. Been there. But we're covering news. We're covering stuff that's on the internet.
This is we're covering the InWorld article about the dice roller, or the pencil dice roller. But there's an InWorld article about him.
Right now, I will name somebody, James Louder. If you don't know who James is, James was, I think, wasn't he like the primary editor for TSR's fiction line?
Wrote many novels. Worked at TSR the big time in the '90s. Did a lot of did editing. Mostly known for, I think, I had a talk to him one GaryCon. We sat at a table and talked for a couple hours. Made a buttload of money writing TSR novels back when that was something that you did to make a buttload of money.
Right.
And yes, he did many supplements for TSR. So yeah, had a big TSR presence. Worked for several companies after he's left TSR. But yes, he called the dice roller to task about some of the stuff he said. And then the dice roller basically just said, "Tough luck. I have the Fair Act. I can use the what was the Fair Act?
The Fair Act. I don't know what the Fair Act is.
I don't think it exists, Eric. I don't think
the Fair Act. There is no Fair Act. Surprise!
Is that like you can't cheat in a game? So you go. I'm calling the Fair Act. You can't.
Yep. Fair Act. You can't do that.
The Fair Act law. I mean, I'm invoking the Fair Act law. The Fair Act law means you cannot. If you're playing diplomacy, you say, Fair Act law. You cannot conspire with another nation behind my back. And
so now again, the dice roller has stated that the articles in question are AI assisted.
Oh,
and if there are any issues with accuracy, the attempt is going to be made to crowdsource corrections, and they would like to raise money to pay for people to edit or rewrite, and only a 10% fee would be held by the website.
Amazing. That's just amazing. Jim, we can't hear you. Something's wrong.
Well, I muted myself because I was swearing under my breath, and so I wanted to stop that before I said something I would regret. I think it's quite interesting that he creates something that may or may not be accurate.
Right.
And then if you want the information corrected, say that you are the person that he's highlighting, you then have to actually pay to get him to correct the incorrect information that he's publishing.
Isn't there a word for that? What's the word for that?
I believe it's called lame.
I thought it might have been extortion.
Maybe
I'm probably being.
And the best part is that after he wittily responded to James Lauder, he also included that any attempt at legal action, he would hit them with an anti-slap action to collect all these court fees, et cetera, et cetera. And,
Okay, but Kentucky doesn't have anti-slap like New York State does.
Jurisdiction, schmurisdiction. When
Eric, this is under the Fair Act law. You don't know the Fair Act law, Eric.
I'm just saying because in this case, I got sued in Kentucky, which the venue was wrong. I shouldn't have been sued in Kentucky. But Kentucky doesn't have anti-slap. New York State does have very strong anti-slap. So I don't know. I'm just I'm going to say I'm very confused, but that's not a surprise in this case, really. I'll be honest with you.
I think the word you're looking for is bored. I mean, really and truly, we've watched this percolating, right? This has been a pot on a slow boil.
This has just been percolating.
And it's been festering. If this was a Civil War soldier who had been wounded, we would have put maggots on this a long time ago and walked away. And instead, it's just percolated along. And the internet is filled with people who don't have any knowledge of what's happened in the last 5 years or 10 years within the industry. A cursory search of the pencil dice roller's name will give you all sorts of information about him. The very notion that you have to pay to get the guy to make corrections is pretty loathsome, but loathsome is a word that frequently pops up when we talk about the behavior that has been exhibited by how many failed Kickstarters? How many Kickstarters that haven't delivered?
God.
enough.
I don't have my
Many.
advocacy.
Yeah.
There are several Kickstarters that have failed to deliver.
Well, actually, let's be technical. Some of them have partially delivered, but there's a lot of outstanding aspects to these.
Sure. Well, I look forward to a day, some point in the future, where we will not have to have discussions ever about the pencil dice roller. And I don't know when that day will be, because frankly, this is a bad penny that continues to pop up. There used to be the website where you could track dollar bills. Where's George?
Oh yeah.
Right, where you register a serial number and you could look up a dollar bill and see how it had traveled and so on and so forth. And honestly, if the pencil dice czar was in fact a dollar bill, I would have just set it on fire and walked it away. because I'm tired of hearing about him. His efforts are lackluster just because he spends all day dorking around with AI. People in the industry that have given him the oxygen to come back this time. I mean, this is sort of like one of those things you study in biology where it doesn't get any oxygen for a long time and it lays dormant, and then suddenly it gets some oxygen and it pokes its head back up again. And I wish it did.
I think that the dice roller I think he had a plan, and I think the plan, I was telling Eric before the show, I think the plan's going as he wants, because we all know that what's the number one thing you want? You want engagement. You don't care if it's negative,
right,
positive, in between, whatever. What you're looking for, and I'm sure Eric has been told this by YouTube, whatever, just get engagement. As long as you get engagement,
or pay for followers. That's also a scheme. You can pay hard dollars to boost your YouTube channel to get lots of views.
That was usually bites
those
in the ass.
Indian clickbait farms aren't going to serve themselves. You've got to give them some dollars to get your crappy channel. I just don't understand it.
But this person at this point, they have engagement. Now I don't know if it's exact when N World runs an article mocking you. I don't know if that's exactly the engagement.
I believe that. Wait. I want to read the subheading: unauthorized, weird, and unintentionally laughable bios with AI created photos.
And there's a whole list of the inaccuracies.
He's leaning into it, though. That's the best. Like I said, that's the best part, is that he's leaning into it.
Yes.
First of all, saying, I'm not going to take anything down. I mean, nothing's coming down. It's just going to be there. And then number two is, as you guys said, well, if you want to change something, I mean, just let's crowdsource this, baby. Let's crowdsource and we can change it. In other words, why don't you correct the mistakes that my AI made? I want you to correct the mistakes.
My favorite thing from the EN World article, Eric, try to pull up the picture. Pull up the picture of Jason Bowman from the website.
Oh,
folks,
God.
I know Jason. He's a nice guy. He's been at Paizo forever. He's a decent guy. But this picture and Jason Bowman have nothing in common.
There's more than one of those, Jim, that are just who said, was it Cam Banks that said, I haven't looked that good in 10 years, or somebody
no, longer than that.
Yeah, I haven't looked that good in 20 years, because these are just, look, there's plenty of pictures there are actual pictures of these guys out there on the internet. You don't have to create. I guess you do if you worship AI, you do, because this is a long-term plan. This person has said before, like a year ago, that they're really into AI. AI is the future for this person. They love AI. AI is the future of everything, and they're leaning into it hard. They are hard.
Like Mark Miller doesn't look like who. I mean,
no.
All right. A lot of these people on my laptop. So give me a second here.
Yeah, there's a lot of these pictures look terrible.
And by spectacular, I mean this is the kind of slow motion train wreck that the one time in Texas they sold tickets and people died.
So Jim, that was called Crash at Crush, and you probably know that being a train aficionado like you are, you've heard the Crash at Crush story.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things in American history.
Oh, look at that!
That's not Jason Bowman. Jason has hair for one thing, and Jason does. I mean, they're Caucasian. They have that.
I saw Jason the last Scary Con I went to. He doesn't know. That looks like a drummer for that looks like a drummer for a Nirvana cover band. That's not.
This is what happened to. I feel like that's what happened to Winger's drummer. He somehow got a picture of Winger's drummer, and that's supposed to be Jason Volmer.
Winger's drummer.
And they get better. I'm sorry, they get worse. Like the Mark Miller one, folks. I live near Mark Miller. I know what Mark Miller looks like. He's a nice guy, and he doesn't look anything like this picture. No. Like the guy that in the picture that's on the website looks like he's going to sell you a used car that was only driven by little old ladies on Sunday. It's just,
you know the Deadpool catchphrase, maximum effort. This is minimum effort. This is the exact opposite of Deadpool. This is minimum effort because this isn't even looking over what you did and saying, I can tweak a couple things there and it can look more like the person. Right. This is just saying, yeah, you know what? It's good enough, minimum effort.
Well, you know what it is? I'm going to tell you what likely happened here. It was, some other individual.
Oh, wait, stop. You should not be making any sort of guesses or assumptions about how this happened.
Oh,
all that matters is that it did happen. And more importantly is that the people listed on the about part of the website, 2 of the 3 of them publicly quit today.
Oh yes,
because they stated, Don Parent and another individual, I can't remember the name, stated that they were not told of this. They did not approve this. It's looking more and more like they were just talked into being the face for the site because they had a more respectable name than the dice roller did. And so he talked 3 people into being the face for it. And they were horrified by this and immediately quit.
Read their No, let's not put a motive on this. Let's just simply say it. This is what Tony Lee published. Don Parent and myself have both officially resigned and disassociated ourselves from this morning. Since all this was done without neither of us signing off, and possibly without Reese's final approval too. Reese being Reese Wardrip.
Right.
That's all I have to say at this time.
And weren't they listed as like chief operating officer and they had titles?
Yes.
CEO and dice sharpener.
By the way, just to reset here, we're covering the EN World article about this, which is a news site, and this is a news story. We're merely repeating stuff that was already mentioned in the EN World article. So we're not speculating on anything. We're just saying what the news is. And this is the news. This is a big story on the EN World site. If you want to go to EN World, it will pop up and you'll get a complete list of all the people that have.
And my favorite is like we now have like the greatest game in the world, right? We can now gather at conventions and we can now play dice roller charades, where we will take one of the sentences from one of his articles and you will be given the sentence and have to enact it. Because helpfully the EN World article has a list of about 25 or 30 of these, including, I like these. These are some of my favorites. Peter Atkinson did not design Magic the Gathering. Wolfgang Baer did not build Dungeons and Dragons. John Eric Holmes did not invent Dungeons and Dragons. This is
called a menu, Jim. This is what they call a menu.
Mike is literally could stand up in the middle of the mall and announce that Jim Kitchen did not create Call of Cthulhu. And it's not wrong, but he's going to get the same dumb looks that anybody reading these articles is going to get.
My favorite was, let's see if I can find it. Larry Elmore did not make his deepest mark on gaming by writing a combat table. No fucking kidding. Really? I mean,
Gene Wells did not leave behind a long shelf of modules with her name on the spine.
No, she didn't. She had
one no kidding. Module. You know what I didn't do today? I didn't create 18 wheelbarrows with the name of my dog emblazoned on them. I somehow managed to escape the day without putting my name on 37 squares of toilet paper.
Eric Tenkar did not revolutionize gaming by cutting his hair and shaving his head one day. And that's true.
Whoa. Yeah.
He did not revolutionize gaming by doing that.
Jim did not lease the cavernous amount of space on his forehead for advertising.
Mike Battleano did not revolutionize gaming by posing as an angel with a halo at certain auctions at North Texas.
No,
That
no,
would be true. He did not do that.
Fallen Angel, maybe. Yeah, you could be half right.
But this one's called. It's called a. There's a name for it. It's called a menu or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's something that AI does. They do not this but this, and the problem is every single article in this thing is this, not this but this, and that's the tag for how you know it's AI created, because human beings do not talk like this, they don't write like this. This is an AI tag, and if you look on the EN World site, it's hilarious. There must be 50 on here, and they're all Carl Sargent did not make Dark Fantasy by turning down the lights. Jack Scrooby did not become famous because one rule system. I mean, these are all, they didn't do this, but here's what they did. It's a tag. It's an AI tag. It's ridiculous.
The fictional character of Peter Parker was not actually bitten by a radioactive spider.
I love all the artists have the same thing. Clyde Caldwell did not make Dungeons and Dragons darker by writing a rule. No, he's an artist. Jeff Easley did not make his deepest mark on tabletop gaming by writing rules. No, he's an artist. The same with Larry Elmore. I mean, Fred Fields did not shape tabletop gaming by writing a rule. No, because he's an artist. This is the dumbest. This is so dumb.
Thing.
I just lost
brain cells. The same line.
They leaked out of my head. Oh.
And thus it was, and thus it was, a talking turd sprung from his head fully formed, and took shape and moved into the world.
I love this. This is one of my favorite ones, actually. Ed Greenwood did not start the Forgotten Realms as a product line. No, he didn't. He started by writing articles for Dragon Magazine, and then it's just so stupid. I can't. The stupid. It's so big that it's hurting me, folks.
I believe what you mean to say is that the stupid burns. It burns.
It burns.
Like,
wait,
okay.
Can
I make a joke?
Was he starting a product line?
Can I make a joke?
75.
You go to heavy metal concerts, right? You go to heavy metal. People will be like, Metallica rocks. Guns N' Roses before before Axl got fat rocked, right? Pick whatever band you want. Mm-hmm. But there is one band universally that is recognized that they don't just rock. Because if you've ever been to see Rammstein in concert, the phrase is not Rammstein rocks. It is Rammstein burns. This is the only thing that burns worse.
I need to tell you, there's something I need to tell you, Jim. I've been wanting to tell you this for a while because I didn't know if you knew this. Do you know that Scott Palter did not create Star Wars? Because I thought there might have been a chance.
Did you know that Mary Lou Retton is not an Ewok?
Now that I would have believed it though.
My God! We could be here all night, folks.
DNA. She's a tiny one. I don't know.
Gary Oliver has never been a male prostitute.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
We don't know that, actually.
That's okay.
That's not 100% provable by anybody.
You know, I have a friend in Edmonton. Shout out to Steve Fitz, who he genuinely believes that Rammstein and Muse are in a competition to see who can outdo each other, because like one goes the odd year and one goes the even years, and they show up at each other's concerts, take notes, and figure out how to top it for the next year. And so I don't disagree with that, but both of those bands did not create the King James Bible.
Once again, I'm going to have to see some evidence. And there's many where the tagline is "did not invent Dungeons and Dragons." John Eric Holmes did not invent Dungeons and Dragons. Tom Mulvey did not invent Dungeons and Dragons. Because there is some people out there that are confused and think instead of Dave and Gary, it was Tom and Dr. Holmes that invented D&D. There are people that are confused, and so thank goodness this article's out there to let them learn that they did not create Dungeons and Dragons. Oh boy, this is what happens when people that are anti-AI. Because look, AI has uses. It can be useful. It can be a useful tool. The people who are anti-AI, all this does is give them so much ammunition. You could fight World War I over with it. I mean, that's because this is the kind of schlocky, no talent, no low information, low effort crap that AI will create if you just sat there and you have no
exactly. See, AI, it's like a pulley system or a lever. If you're going to use it, you actually have to put effort into it, and maybe you can make something better than you would have done on your own. But if you just say, "Hey, do this," AI gives you shit.
Right, which is why I was never that worried that AI was going to take over our hobby, because AI can only do what AI does. You still need a human being there. I mean, you could have AI write 25 D&D adventures, and they're gonna sound like this. You know, they're gonna be.
I'm quoting the Ian article. I am quoting the Ian article, which plucked this little nugget out of the website. John Kovalik did not make games look serious.
the cartoonist John Kovalik. I'm shocked. I mean, I thought that was dead serious.
I mean, really and truly, this is how we got the Matrix, right? This, don't kid yourself. This is, I mean, yeah, this is how we got the Matrix. This is exactly how we all wound up being batteries in the Matrix.
We're all just so flummoxed here because we can't even parody this. This is beyond our efforts to even parody or make fun of, because it's just so non-serious and so ridiculous that we can't even. And I think that's what. And look, none of us here are important enough to be covered by these fake AI created bios. But if we were, who is calling? But if we were, we'd probably be as upset as some of the people who are being covered, and they're finding a fake picture of them, and then they're finding false information. They're saying, "I didn't do that. I never said that. I was not there." And yeah, you can understand why some of these people are upset, and they're like, is there any kind of way I can deal with this? And unfortunately, there's not much you can do about something like this, and that's why.
Eric, I have to share one with you. I think we're going to need to highlight this 1 second. Let me find it. Here we go. Yes, this was 4 hours old, so we should share this because it's a really great one, right? And again, I mean, no disrespect, I said it to our special super secret chat.
Hold on.
Secret.
Oh yes. Once you behold its splendor, you will never be able to
secret.
unsee this.
It's so secret.
So you need to share this with everybody, because this is the Dice Rollers version of Harold Johnson.
Oh God, has he ever looked like this? Maybe when he was 21, did he look like this?
You just have to see it. It's spectacular.
This is awful.
Wait for it. Brace yourself. Batten down your hatches. You're not ready for this much smooth.
Yeah, give me a second.
It's hard to recognize that without his hat. Without his hat, he's hard to recognize anyway. So
he looks like he's trying to sell you insurance when you're closing on a car loan.
Yeah, if he's ever looked like this, I've known him for 25 years. I've never seen him look like this. If he has.
Oh wait, hold on a second.
This is ridiculous.
All right, hold on. Did I grab the right thing? Hold on. Maybe I didn't.
Oh my God,
so.
Eric's.
Oh no, I was grabbing the wrong thing. Oh, good thing I didn't.
Whoa, hey, whoa! Watch what you
grab the wrong thing. Grab the right thing.
Okay, hold on. And then here, maybe it'll be easier if I save this. Yeah, I was wondering why is Jim sending me a conversation? I'm like, oh, wait a second, they're talking about a photo. No, that ain't it. All right, so I found it. Okay. Again, I'm up in the Poconos. I'm on my laptop. It ain't so easy being green.
Advanced fantasy games. It's interesting how loud the anti-AI crowd has become. You don't hear any of us saying anti-AI. What you hear us saying is, just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing.
Or if you're going to do it correctly. We have a friend, Eric and I have a friend who she has worked with AI art.
Oh, yeah.
And her job is to basically make it take away the 6 fingers. And she said, look, this is a job, because what AI comes out with, oh dear God, that's so terrible. What AI comes out with is usually not publishable. You have to massage it and fix it and take care of it. And if you don't do that, this is what you come up. This is what happens to you. This is what happens. It's just terrible, terrible. And basically, this is what happens. You get profiled by Ian World, and Ian World is going to rip you.
I mean, that's shellacked hair.
Okay.
I mean,
I mean, it looks like literally you've just signed. It looks like you've been in the Marine Corps for 6 months and you're there to sign the car loan to buy a Camaro at 27% interest. And this guy's about to sell you the insurance policy.
Jim, has Harold ever looked like this?
No.
Because I think I first met him in
Harold has his fans.
2007, 2008.
Harold has his fans, and some of them are a little, shall we say, off kilter.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Harold has never looked like this. I mean, maybe
I've known since 2007, and that's 20 years, and he's never looked like this once.
No.
Ever.
No. Look at that shellacked hair.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He probably loved that hair. He'd probably be super happy.
Okay, let's remove this because I mean, obviously the number one thing that he failed on is he didn't give Harold his hat. So there's
if without his hat, it's very hard to recognize Harold without his hat. So
oh my God, that's just dreadful.
But you know what? Harold Johnson is not known for racing Formula One cars. Did you know that?
Really?
That is not what he's known for. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of speechless because I'll be honest with you. I saw the N-word article. I glanced through it, went, my God. And then I went, you know what? Who wrote it? And I said, oh, Morris wrote it. Now I understand.
Oops.
Morris is in the UK.
Yeah. Kind of hard. Legal action isn't going to happen, folks.
Yeah, best of luck because I don't know.
Sorry.
You're gonna to file overseas with AI.
Good luck.
Good luck.
So we urge everybody to go to the In-World page. You can very easily find this article. There's already 15 pages of comments, and some of those are hilarious. As hilarious as we've been talking about here.
That's getting the kind of velocity that the new TSR stuff got back in the day. That's thumbs up. If you want attention, that's attention.
So we've spent a half an hour on this bullshit. Let's move on to something else than gaming.
Wow. Stupid. Is that Barnabas Collins? Because
so I just sent a picture. I just want to point this out. I want to point
Mike, what's going on with you, Mike?
I sent something in our messenger chat, Eric. I sent another thing in our messenger chat. So spend the next 5 minutes trying to get that. Eric or Mike, what else have you got in gaming stupid?
You know what? I may have that may be my gaming stupid tonight because it's like I think I OD'd on that. I just kind of OD'd because it was just there was so much stupid all at once and it was coming from every direction. And as good as I am at dodging it, sometimes I couldn't dodge. I got hit a couple times. I took some flack.
You know, this reminds me. Have you guys seen the video that's been floating around for the last week about the guy who blew the job interview?
Which one? Because
so this guy essentially records himself and essentially says, I went into the interview, I was prepared, but I got the question they always ask, and I had an answer, but I spaced out and I answered it honestly. And so they asked, of course, if there was one thing about yourself that you could improve upon, what would it be? And without missing a beat, he goes, Oreos. It doesn't matter if I run out of milk in the glass. I'm going to eat as many as I possibly can. and he's sitting in the car and he's like, and so I don't have a job and I'm still looking.
But damn it, I got to.
Those questions that's the dumbest question ever.
Is the same thing, right? Because you start reading this and you just think, oh my God, it can't get any worse. And the quotes just get worse and they're terrible. So I want to talk about this cover.
Yeah, please.
I want to talk about this cover because this is a great cover. So let me explain. So they announced this months and months ago, but I guess we're getting close to June, and the D&D Ravenloft Horrors Within hardcover is getting ready to ship. Now there's an alt cover that's pretty cool as well, but I want you to look at this cover and really. This is what Strahd should be about. You know, Strahd is not mortal. He's not troubled by mortal men or women. And he is the king of his domain. And truthfully, if he's played well, if he's run well by a good DM, he should be one of the most horrific encounters you ever have. But I want to point this cover out because this is a spectacular cover, right? I have had a lot of criticisms about the Dungeons and Dragons books and some of their cover art. I've been very impressed where some of the alt covers have been better than the original, than the sort of trade edition. But I wanted to point this out because, man, this has got that oozing, sexy, like Vampire the Masquerade quality that sold a lot of RPGs in the 90s, but it doesn't veer towards, frankly, the Vampire or Kindred the Embrace, the awful television show, and Count Chocula. And I just want to go on record saying I'm pretty impressed with this.
So I sent a picture. This is exactly what it reminds me of, which I think is cool because when I was a kid, this was Mr. Vampire to me. I sent the picture in the chat.
Yeah, give me a second.
This was the vampire, and look at him. This looks like him. Somebody, whoever did the cover, kudos, thumbs up. I think they did an homage. I think this is homage to the greatest vampire of all time, Barnabas Collins. And I'm rewatching Dark Shadows now because it's coming on one of the rerun channels, and every night they play.
Really? What channel? Tell me more.
It's one of the cable channels, and they play about not cable channels. One of the
there we go.
But anyway, they play about 5 or 6 episodes every night. And for those who don't remember, Dark Shadows was a soap opera that started this. It came in the 60s. It started out as a gothic soap opera. It went for about a year. It was terrible ratings.
I think 3 years.
They gave the writing over to this guy that said, and he said, you know what, this thing's gonna fail. They said they're going to shut it down in 2 months. I'm going to put a vampire in here. And it immediately blew up as only things pre-internet could blow up. And it became one of the most popular. I mean, I remember every babysitter I had in the 60s was 3:30 in the afternoon, whatever, would flip over and be watching Dark Shadows. Now you watch it now.
1,225 episodes, 2 theatrical releases, a remake in the 90s, and one of the most underappreciated Johnny Depp movies of the last 25 years.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the OG Jonathan Fried, the OG.
Yeah, Jonathan Fried, who I got to interview once.
Oh, dude, no way.
Yes.
Oh.
So Fried was coming to Huntington, West Virginia to do a live stage show for one night or whatever. And this was in the late 80s, and there was an interest. This was 87, 88. There was a real interest still in Dark Shadows because they had just started to do the videotape releases of the shows. So you subscribed and you got God knows how many videotapes. And so my college newspaper editor wanted somebody to interview Fried to publish an article about what the show was going to be and so on and so forth. And so I got his phone number. I was told to call, and I had to call on the dot. Jonathan Fried had been living in the same apartment in Manhattan that he had in the 60s.
Wow.
That 25 years later, he still had the same apartment in downtown Manhattan with rent control. And so I got to interview him for 15 or 20 minutes. He was unbelievably nice. Oh. But when he hit his point of, and I'm done, he was done and he was out. But it was Barnabas. I was on the phone with Barnabas Collins, and it was just great.
I'll tell you one of the cool things. So rewatching soap opera, I watched it many years ago, several episodes. But rewatching it, it's interesting because Barnabas Collins is not a good dude. He is a bad guy. No. I mean, he is bad. He does some really awful things in the soap opera that you'd be shocked the 60s had this kind of portrayal of a vampire. He is not a happy-go-lucky, friendly vampire. He kidnaps people. He drives women crazy, literally insane by locking them up because he thinks they look like his ex-wife or sister or girlfriend. His little sister is a ghost that torments him, so he's tormented the whole time. And he kills people, and he doesn't have any forgiveness for that, or he doesn't care. And he is a bad dude. He is a bad dude. Not like today's little fluffy, twinkly, happy-go-lucky. I'm going to date a high schooler because that's creepy. Vampires. He's not. This is not Barnabas Collins. So looking like Barnabas Collins is a thumbs up for me. And I can see the resemblance. And I would love to ask artists if that was an inspiration, because I am almost certain. Look at these two pictures side by side.
So Turner Classic Movies showed House of Dark Shadows about a week ago.
Oh, really? That's the
one of the two movies.
Yeah.
And And
Wow.
most people forget this, but Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels is in it. And you're
Young
watching
Kate
the movie and you're
Jackson?
like, wait a minute, hold on a
Oof.
second. Yeah.
Did you
So
say
good.
young Kate Jackson? Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. The most underrated angel, in my opinion, honestly.
Yes. Kate Jackson and
Mhm.
Cheryl Ladd and all of the other Battle of the Network stars. You know,
Kate Jackson was the most underrated. I'm sorry. She was thumbs up.
Farrah,
Yeah.
like I just still remember that Lee Majors was married to Farrah Fawcett and then they got divorced.
Oh,
And he was
yeah.
like 10 years older than she was, I think. You know, like
Probably.
at least 10 years older.
Well, there's that piece of advice that I'm not going to fully state here because I don't want to say it, but no matter how good looking she is, there's somebody out there that's tired of like.
So what channel is showing Dark Shadows at night?
It's so.
I need the answer to that question.
You have that. What's it called? The TV. Oh gosh, I swear to God.
Hold
on.
If I get diagnosed with a terminal illness, I'm coming on this show and we're going to spend an entire night doing a tribute to Joe Bob Briggs. Because we just don't talk about how great Joe Bob Briggs was enough.
I've met Joe Bob 3 times because he's in Texas. He's in Texas.
He's a great American.
He's awesome, man. He did his I met him as far back as the 80s when he just started Joe Bob or Joe Bob Briggs. He just started the character. It was.
I have all of his books, and they are wonderful, and I highly recommend them. And when he passes this mortal coil, I hope to be 1/1,000,000th of the man that Joe Bob Briggs is, because Joe Bob.
It's on MeTV. It's on MeTV. You can watch it on. So if you're able to get MeTV,
yeah, MeTV's over the air here, so like we get it in HD. Somebody's chiming in at Amazon Prime. Is it on Amazon?
Amazon Prime also, yes. Amazon Prime. I think you get the entire series of Amazon Prime.
My God, I finally don't have to buy the 122 DVD box set.
Well, here's the problem with Dark Shadows is, and I'm realizing this watching a little bit every night or when I get a chance, is that soaps in those days moved slow.
Oh my God.
Oh, glacial.
You think they're slow now? They are glacial in the past. Glacial.
You'll have plenty of time to do AI slop reviews of every episode.
Oh boy. You can watch 5 episodes a night and the plot will have advanced this much.
Well, because they had to assume that you would miss an episode or two.
Oh, absolutely. And back then you couldn't rewatch episodes. If you missed it, and it's gone. It's gone forever. It might as well be gone forever back then. But yes, it moved very glacial. But it's just interesting because it was unlike any other soap opera, obviously, for the time period. And actually, to this day, there's still not we have shows that cover horror and gothic, but we don't have a soap opera. Can you imagine General Hospital having a vampire, which would be awesome.
No.
It'd actually be pretty kick-ass. But that's how crazy this was,
So Joe Bob, ironically, if you didn't know it, Joe Bob Briggs did not create the holiday of Halloween.
Oh, I'm very disappointed in hearing that.
When I was going to the magazine stands, right? When my grandparents, we would go out to eat on Friday night. We'd usually go to Huntington, West Virginia, and we would go to Nick's newsstand afterwards. And if I was good, I got to buy a magazine or a paperback. I got to pick one. And so Starlog was my magazine of choice. But every once in a while, there would be that unbelievably really sweet, cool issue of Fangoria. But my grandmother took one look at Fangoria, and that was it. It was never on the table again. It was only going to be Starlog. And I shed so many tears. Now, MeTV is broadcast over the air where I am, and I believe that's the case for most of the municipalities. It's one of these commercial conveyors. So they have national spots all over, and then they get local stations to broadcast it on one of their spare HD channels. And then they can rent out commercial time. So if you have an HD antenna for your television, you should be able to pick up MeTV. These are super easy to hook up and run with. But I'm going to be on MeTV tonight. I'm going to be on MeTV.
And what's great is they only show like maybe I don't know like a week's worth of episodes, like 5 or 6 episodes a night.
Wait. We need to highlight Baron Karza, because I still have my Baron Karza and Oberon Micronauts figures, and I will have them put in my coffin. So whoever Baron Karza is, yes, there were like 13 or 14 Dark Shadows paperbacks, but you, sir, win the No Prize Award for best commenter's name tonight. Hands down. All hail Baron Karza.
Anybody that shouts out to Micronauts is okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
and Elvira, yes. We're sort of off into the weeds here, but
yes,
Elvira.
yeah, and he's right. Dark Shadows. There was a series of novelizations too that were extremely popular. My next door neighbor's older sister, you walk in a room and she had all the novelizations on. She was,
oh my god, there were 33 books, followed by a second series of 5 books, followed by a whole host of other books. Good Lord.
Yeah, there's also a Gold Key comic too, by the way, Jim. But my friend's older sister, we're talking the early 70s here. She was into it, and I think by then it had already been canceled. But she was a huge Dark Shadows fan, and had, like I said, she had the board game, she had the comics, she had all the novelizations. If a dude walked through the door looked like Barnabas Collins, you probably could have had her right then and there. I mean, she was really into Dark Shadows. She was, and that's kind of what got me interested, because I'm like, what's this Dark Shadows thing? And when I was in high school, they started from the very beginning, not the very beginning of the soap opera. They started the very beginning. The first episode featured that had the poor handyman who found the coffin and opened it up. Oh, by the way, always a bad plan. If you find an abandoned coffin, don't
open the coffin that's been chained shut.
Open the coffin, and the character, I can't remember what his name was, the handyman, opened the coffin in Collinswood, and Barnabas popped out, and then he made the guy into his little servant monkey, and it was a bad deal.
And really and truly, the Dark Shadows movie with Johnny Depp, it's glorious. There are moments that just you have to pause the movie because you're laughing so hard. My favorite, like after he gets let loose and Barnabas is traipsing around Collinsport, my favorite is when he comes across an entire van of hippies. Now this is set in 71 or so, and he's sitting around the campfire with them, and he's like, "Oh, you're all very delightful. I feel very bad about having to kill all of you." And then it's a hippie feast. He feasts on the hippies. And then the other is Angelique. If you ever watch Dark Shadows, Angelique, what a I mean, she's like a Scooby-Doo villain come to life.
That's his main antagonist. Yes. She's a witch, right? Witch from the
She is a scorned witch. Don't miss out on that. And I will say this: the movie has the best use of Knights in White Satin by the Moody Blues I've heard in a long. It's just perfect. It's really, really evocative. It's just great.
And by the way, those who like their monsters have equal representation. There is also a werewolf in the later seasons.
Yes. I don't want to spoil it.
And time travel. There's a lot of time travel. They go back in time, and it's just it's crazy stuff. I mean,
the cliche of time travel is unfortunately well used.
If you try to read a synopsis of a season, it will make zero sense, because the names will be thrown out, and there's time travel, and there's spells, and there's witches, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, but it's well worth watching a few episodes just for the fun of it, just to see what the late 60s, early 70s audience thought about, something that was it reminds me a lot of, if anybody remembers when Twin Peaks debuted on TV.
God, yes. We've talked about that.
There was nothing on television like it. It was, I remember watching it and being absolutely just wow. Because all I knew David Lynch was from Blue Velvet and Eraserhead.
And I saw 1991, if you go into Twin Peaks cold, and I think our audience is probably 50-50, but even if you haven't watched the original Twin Peaks in a decade or 20 years, you have to watch it, and you just have to realize this aired in 1991. Like, this is in the Moonlighting was still on the air. And when it hit, that first episode, or it's that first episode where the two guys are working on the railroad trying to fix some railroad tracks. and Laura Palmer's girlfriend, her friend, comes stumbling down the tracks, bloody and wearing nothing but a slip. And when she appears, like, there was nothing on television like this. Absolutely nothing. You knew you were totally off the reservation.
Pre-internet and everything that we know now that wasn't back then. You went to your work the next week, and Who Killed Laura Palmer was the thing. It's kind of like the Who Shot JR of the 80s. The 90s, it was Who Killed Laura Palmer. And there were so many explanations and so many magazine articles and so many news stories about it. And everybody had their explanation. By the way, pretty much no one was right.
Everybody had a theory.
Everybody had a theory, yes.
And then before they revealed it, they published the diary, the mysterious diary that had disappeared.
So I mean,
everybody's like, who's Bob? Who's Bob? Who's Bob? And
Bob,
again,
yes.
not to spoil it, but when it's revealed, it's just the top of your head blows off, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
So this is right. So basically, if you remember Twin Peaks, you're old enough. Dark Shadows was the Twin Peaks of its time, and then everybody went bonkers when it came on because it was so over the top. That's the same with Twin Peaks. There was nothing like it on television. Now there's a lot like it because the entertainment's caught up to where we are now. I mean, it was so far ahead of its time.
And our hobby is filled with log ladies as far as the eye can see.
And I'll tell you something that's great about it. If you don't like Lynch, he tones down, for the first season at least, he tones down a lot of the Lynchian weirdness. It's just a really well-made, interesting, bizarre TV show. Now, second season, it starts going off into Lynchian wackiness, and it gets almost a little too much. But the first season's perfect. It's literally perfect, you know. And so yeah, that's if you don't know anything about it or just have heard about it, that first season is so good. There's just so many great character actors. You see all the faces. You're like, I know that person. I know that person. I know that person. I mean, Sherilyn Fenn's. I mean, you're just picking them out. Like, I know who she is. I know, you know, Laura Boyle.
Don't even start with Sherilyn Fenn. Oh. I had a computer desk. I have one of those awful Souder computer desks while I lived in Baltimore that eventually just collapsed and fell apart. But I had a little it had a cabinet for storing CDs, all your games and so on and so forth. And on the inside of the door, I had the Parade one-page interview with Sherilyn Fenn. And every time I would open it up, I would just be like, Audrey. And then I just shut it. And it was that way for like 3 years. I was just like, Audrey.
Her and Madchen Amick. Now, Madchen Amick had a very long career in television. A very long career.
I don't even want to start with.
Oh my gosh, was she the hottie of all hotties in that
She
show?
Could set fire to paint and paper at 150.
And like I said, I think she's still in. She's had a very long career in television. But yes, Kyle MacLachlan. That was one of the first things we saw. Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan.
He was the FBI
agent. Made The Hidden. Is it The Hidden? Yep. What was the alien invasion movie?
The Hidden movie was great. Yeah, that's where, you know, he's been in a million things now, but that's kind of where he hit it real big as Cooper, Agent Cooper, and then there's just
Cruz.
You just gotta watch it. There's Heather Graham was in the second season, but she was kind of a minor part. But yeah, there is
Chris
so
Isaacs.
many.
Chris Isaacs is in it.
Isaac was in there. There was so many people that just popped up and that continue to pop up in the night. But yes, it's well worth watching if you've never seen the first season.
Yeah.
But like I said, that was I always appreciate shows like that and like Dark Shadows or even when Dallas did the Who Shot JR, because they absolutely put, you know, money in a bottle with that one too. That I remember that summer, that is all anybody talked about ever when I worked at my job, when you went out it was all about Who Shot JR, because that was the season-ending episode. He gets shot and falls down, and everybody hated JR. His mother hated him. Everybody hated him. You had and so there was some betting lines. There was betting lines on Who Shot JR, and like you could lay down money.
Yes, who are the odds-on favorites?
But yeah, that Twin Peaks, Dark Shadows. There's a lot of shows like that. Not to get too far in the weeds, but I've always loved shows like that. I love shows that come out and there's nothing like it. And you know, I'll tell you a show modern show that didn't stick the landing. It was like that was Lost. And since Lost, we've had a million shows.
I'll never get those hours of my life back, and I resent them for it.
But I tell you what, just stop watching before the last season because that's where it all falls apart. But it's one of those shows that now you have the show like From, you have The Dome, you have all these shows kind of like it now that there's something really weird going on, but nobody knows what it is. It's just crazy, and we're just going to keep on going and do whatever. Oops. What's going on? We don't know what's going on.
Okay.
The writers don't know what's going on. The actors, nobody knows what's going on.
If I may, let me throw out a movie in the same vein. Most people don't remember it. It came, it went. But Dark City. Oh my God. Movie. There is a head-flipping moment towards the end of that movie where all of a sudden everything begins to make sense. And you are just like, oh, it's a great movie.
And it gets it's a lot of people talk about Dark City. Some people say it was the inspiration for the Matrix. It does have some Matrix-y kind of things in there. There's a lot of people. I'm looking right now. It's a 1998 film. I didn't know when it came out in '98, but it's actually inspiration. A lot of people took inspiration for that for future projects. One of them being the Matrix. The Matrix is considered a inspiration for that, but I've seen it inspiration for a lot of movies that have come out, and it's probably not as well known as it should be because it's a really, really great movie.
Yes, Dark Horizon, another really great one. I'm trying to think of some of these others. We're sort of on this little accidental nostalgia tour tonight, and I'm okay with that. I think there's a lot of this stuff. Somebody asked very early on, did Dark Shadows have an influence on Blackmore or something? I think there's no question. I know that there are James Ward apologists in this world, but there is a Canadian television show called The Star Lost that is about a generational spaceship that went astray and how the people on board have forgotten they're on a spaceship. And strangely enough, it aired in Wisconsin the year before Metamorphosis Alpha came out. Now, two people can have two great ideas, two similar ideas at the same time. This is not me making an accusation.
Mm-hmm.
But Dark Shadows left a long imprint on, you have to understand that Barnabas was a tragic hero. He was not a good man. He was a gray man.
Mm-hmm.
He had a love that he had lost due to that bitch Angelique.
Mm-hmm.
And he found what he thought was his love reincarnated. And woe is me.
And drove her insane.
Working around.
As he would do. Because he was not
But this entire notion of sexy vampire or romantic vampire, a lot of that has its roots in Jonathan Frid's portrayal of Barnabas. Because, again, this was a show that was on in the afternoons. Kids would see it. They'd run home. They'd see it in the afternoon on TV. And it percolated in the memories. So,
what's interesting about Jonathan Frid, I don't know if this is something we talked about in the interview. I would have to find it. I'm just looking for it. I can't find it. He did an interview years later, like, what was it like to be a sex symbol? And he was a very classically trained actor.
Yes,
that had
the
no
classically
clue.
trained Shakespearean. Yes,
I don't know why that came about, how it came about. I have no clue. And so it's funny because he's just this. He plays the part very straight, which probably makes it better that he plays it really straight. And he's very menacing. And he's the opposite of anything you think was sexy, but the chicks loved him. The babysitter chicks loved him. They were watching the show. They were like oohing and ahhing and Barnabas Collins, like you really wouldn't want
Mike,
Barnabas.
Did you want to duck out because you were talking about?
Yes. Well, I have to. Sorry, folks. I do have to leave early, and you don't want me to get on a rant about some show, but yes, if you can take one thing from tonight, remember dice pencils and Barnabas Collins.
That's right.
All right, I'll see you guys later. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to everybody later.
All right. Thank you, Mike. So let's see. Let's talk about some other stuff. So there's the comment. Are we talking about RPGs yet? So let's talk about RPGs. It's really interesting. a couple of weeks ago, I was at Dungeon Con and I did the auction at Dungeon Con. They raised over $4,000
Nice.
at the auction. Plus, we had other donations. And one of the things that I think is interesting is that I constantly am getting the notifications of, hey, this Kickstarter's coming, this Kickstarter's coming. Oh my God, I've lost. I'm so boring. I drove Eric from the room.
No, the puppy will keep barking until I pick her up.
So somebody says, I'm amazed at the knowledge of many YouTube personalities these days, you guys included, and enjoy watching all these channels, even some new ones. You know, I think a lot of us landed in a very interesting time. Star Trek was like a 3-year run on NBC, but it proved that there was a fandom out there that would watch this stuff.
Yep.
And when you look at what came afterwards, right? I was a kid that devoured every season. I devoured both seasons of Space 1999. I remember going like, huh? Because it's sort of, there's a real difference between season 1 and season 2. And I'm not just talking about the women in the red cat suits in one episode.
Oh, it totally changed. Yeah.
But you had Dark Shadows, you had Space 1999, you had all these other things. But all this stuff influences, you know, role-playing games and so on and so forth. We've talked a lot about the science fiction side of things, but think about horror, right? So we always talk about Call of Cthulhu, but the other real great attempt at a horror RPG was Chill. You know, Chill was a game that was much more about the sort of what I would call gothic horror, sort of the Basil Copper kind of stuff. If you don't know who Basil Copper is, he's an author that Arkham House published several of his things here in the United States. They published some short story collections. They published a couple of his novels. The novels are The House of the Wolf and Necropolis. And then they did at least two collections I can think of off the top of my head. Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Before we all grew to hate Buck Rogers because of how much Lorraine wanted us to devour the Buck Rogers RPG game. Yes, Jill Gerard. And again, what a difference between season 1, okay, disco, and season 2 with, you know, I am Hawkman, whatever. I genuinely believe that Bird Person is inspired by Hawk from the second season of Buck Rogers. But Princess Ardala for the win, and then she's not in season 2, and that's just rude. I have my original Chill poster, which has the hapless team of investigators in front of a castle, and Dracula is coming out of the castle, which I always thought was really nice.
Chill was an interesting game, and that was yes. And Mayfair was putting out, or sorry, it was Payfair. You had Chill, Sandman, Star Ace or Space Ace. Then you had Time Master. I mean,
yes,
it was a universal system. It was kind of playing off what we now call like the phase rip type of deal. But I had them all. I gotta admit.
Well, and I think, you know, like a lot of us, we had to pick where we spent our money, right?
Yep.
I was a D&D guy, and then I was a Gamma World in a big way. I bought Gangbusters and couldn't get anybody to want to play.
Never owned it.
Which
My friend that had it couldn't get us to play.
Mel Blanc did his voice. So bitty. That was Mel Blanc. But it's interesting because I think that a lot of what we're talking about, yes, I think the two things are sort of intertwined, you know, mass television. How many of you in the audience, here's a painful one, Man from Atlantis.
Oh my.
Oh, don't worry. Lil Jimmy Kitchen loved him, Man from Atlantis, and thought all 4 of the telemovies were amazing. And then I got a TV series, and then Patrick Duffy swam off into the distance and never came back.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes. And then it was over. I don't know. I think there's a lot of this stuff that sort of bounces around in all of our heads and so on and so forth. It's a very, very, very interesting time, that decade of 70 to 80 and the height of Dungeons and Dragons and so on and so forth. I was talking with somebody the other day about the Holmes box set, and I've never pretended to say that my favorite starter set is the Holmes box set. That's what I started with. I then got the expert set when it came out. I didn't get the basic set. I bought the expert because I already had the home set. But I didn't have a white box. I didn't have a wood grain. I didn't have a white grain. I had a white box later in life. And it got crushed. Thank you, movers. But I would be remiss to say that a lot of this, all that stuff led to my reading, and all my reading fueled my interest in RPGs and so on and so forth. I was a kid that devoured the Shadow radio shows. Okay. And so I had tons of those that I used to just listen to, and the plots are creepy. And then that led to trying to find the old Shadow. There was a line of Shadow paperbacks and a line of Shadow hardcovers that I got through interlibrary loans. Then I fell into Doc Savage, and I still have all my Doc Savage collection. This stuff just, it bounces. It's literally like a pinball. It just goes off and the bumpers left, right.
It feeds. It's there's this that whole circle. I mean, I was a voracious reader in my teens and my 20s. I could get through a book, and if I was on vacation, it could be a book a day. But if I mean, I would, when I was working retail, I would get up a half an hour early so I could start reading a book that I would then read on the bus on my way to work.
Yes. But, and all this stuff, all the live action stuff that we watched on Saturday morning, Arc 2, Jason and the Space Cadets, all that sort of stuff. I will mention, if you were a fan of all the Filmation cartoons, so the folks that did Star Trek, the animated series, they did Tarzan and the Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, they did Flash Gordon, Be Still My Heart, Princess Ardala. I'm just saying. They have just released. They're getting ready to release a soundtrack of all the great music from the Filmation cartoons, and it looks like it's going to be just astounding, absolutely astounding. Yes, Arc 2, Jason of Star Command, which, if you watch Jason of Star Command, they actually use the nose from one of the Arc 2 miniatures for the spaceship. It's pretty painful. Yeah, I have all 181 of the original Doc Savage books. I've got all the paperbacks. My name is Victoria Winters. Yes, we're leaving Vicky in the dust tonight. I think we need to leave Vicky in the dust. But now there's an old school miniatures Kickstarter, right? Or not old school miniatures. There's an old school essentials Kickstarter right now for like the Hell or some sort of hellish demon spawn world. Yes. I saw that, and I've got a bunch of the OSE on my shelf. I'm trying to think of other RPG products that are coming that have sort of caught my eye. And my problem is right now the Gen Con events calendar is coming, and I have to figure out how much time from the Gen Con auction I can address, because like the events that I want to go to are an hour and a half long, which means I would be gone for roughly 2 hours. I would leave. It would take me 10-15 minutes to get over there, 10-15 minutes to get back, and the event is an hour and a half. But there's an event on Friday. There's a couple events on Saturday. Saturday is usually my lighter day, but I got to figure out how much time I can cut loose. But I've been going through the event calendar, and my wants are very specific. Logan's Run is still one of my favorite movies of all time. Again, not to get down the AI chat, we talked about it last week. The Filmation Star Trek stuff is interesting because they recorded all of the voices separately. So William Shatner is literally at a science fiction convention reading all of his lines with nobody else around him and having to guess at what he's trying to inflect. If you like the animated series, you need to look up the Star Trek shortcuts, which are on YouTube, that they did in honor of the 45th anniversary of Star Trek, the animated series. They're hysterical. They're very good. Yes, Larry Niven did a script. That's why that Kazenti and the slavers are mentioned in it. David Gerald contributed yet another Tribbles episode. They're all good. I love those, but they were never on reliably when I was a kid. By the time I was old enough to appreciate Star Trek and the Star Trek animated series, they weren't a regular show.
Right.
That was tough. Yes. Yeah, the slaver weapon is an adaptation of one of Niven's short stories, and they went with it just because it was easy. I think DC Fontana had something to do with the script selection, if I remember correctly. But yeah, lots of fun. But all this stuff, it gets into your mind. It's in your brain. You think about this stuff. You know, one of the most terrifying episodes for me of Johnny Quest was the invisible paint monster. So the invisible monster that comes to life, blows up a camp, and starts menacing Race and the boys. And one of the jetpacks fails, but what they finally hit on is they'll hit it with paint so you can see it, and it's this purple bluish blob that screams and moans. And like 7-year-old me, there are 3 episodes of television that caused me to absolutely freak out as a kid.
Really?
One is the invisible paint monster of Johnny Quest. Space 1999, Dragon's Domain. Now, I've talked about this on the show before. You can't watch this episode without laughing your ass off, because the monster is, in fact, a giant strobe light wrapped in bubble wrap. Sure. But at one point, when the monster is starting to eat the members of the crew of the probe, whatever, the ultra probe, it throws out a tentacle, it wraps around somebody, and it pulls them into their mouth. And the first time it does this, it pulls them in screaming, and then spits out the smoking skeleton where it's devoured this poor bastard. and they don't pull any punches. And Dragon's Domain scared the crap out of me. Like, I had to turn it off and walk away. I was like, ah, and I didn't get any sleep that night. Right?
See, I had an episode of Lost in Space that did that to me.
Yeah,
it was the episode with the older daughter gets like duplicated by a plant, and her arm gets. I still remember the arm getting cut, and it's not flesh; it's a plant material. I had nightmares about that for the better part of a year.
yes.
I haven't watched Lost in Space since I was a kid, and I still have that episode, that part of that episode.
Oh, Dragon's Domain broke me, man. I just was like, ugh. And then the other episode of Space 1999 that got me as a kid was the one where Helena is that they're on they find a bunch of humans on a planet, and one of them agrees to leave and go back to Alpha, and Helena and the guy are sitting in the chairs on the Eagle as it's taking off. And as soon as they get out of whatever field that has kept them alive forever, the dude just becomes a skeleton, and she screams. And that's another good episode too. That's, you know, the Doomsday Machine. Douglas Spears mentions the Doomsday Machine. I think a lot of people don't give the original Trek the due they should, because the people who worked on it at Desilu, they were masters of the lighting, they were masters of pace and set design and so on and so forth. You had a lot of movie people that worked on this show, but what makes the Doomsday Machine work is the soundtrack. The soundtrack of the Doomsday Machine is different from every other episode, and I'm a big fan of the Fred Saberhagen Berserker novels. I love the notion that these things are out there and they are implacable, unstoppable, monstrous. You know, they're just machines and they are anti-life. I think that's a great, interesting, you know, I have a Stellaris. I created a race in Stellaris of determined exterminators that are a machine race, and they are just awful. And actually, because I've created them and they're saved in my Stellaris files, every once in a while they spawn. If I have a solo game, every once in a while they spawn, and they are a bitch kitty to put down, and I'm very proud of them. But the Berserkers and the Doomsday Machine are both wrapped around my cortex. From I saw the episode as a kid, and then, you know, read the Berserker novels. Yeah, the Forbin Project's another great movie from the early 70s. The Forbin Project's really good. Colossus is again on this path of AI. Yes, we'll stay there. I was never a Lost in Space kid because the reruns didn't air around me. I never saw.
Okay.
I never saw it in reruns.
I think they were like 4:30 out by me.
Yeah, and Slithus. I've spoken before of my love of Slithus, one of the great all-time one of the great all-time horrible drive-in movies. And I still can remember that if you were one of the first 100 people to go to the drive-in, you would be issued a Slithis survival kit, which
nice.
I do not have. I did not possess the Slithis survival kit because, don't worry, my grandparents wouldn't take me to go see Slithis. I'm probably okay for that.
Well, the 4:30 movie that gave me nightmares was The Blob.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I was
Yes,
like,
the giant Jello mold. You know, if you've ever had to go to the basement of a church on a Sunday afternoon after service and you have to see all those Jello salads, the only thing you can think of is those aren't marshmallows; those are the teeth of whoever's left in the blob.
oh God.
And Silent Running, that's another one where interesting set design. The robots are great. The spaceship is the Valley Forge. That's a great one. Lots of interesting stuff. But we don't give enough credit. Fred Saberhagen wrote the Berserkers. He wrote the Swords books. The Keith Laumer Retief novels are great. You know, there's a hint of modern diplomacy in them that's really good. I devoured all the Vincent Price movies when I was a kid. You know, I have a whomping collection of those now. I made sure to expose my kid to House of Wax and all those others when he was growing up.
Good ones.
But that's the stuff I like. You know, I think that's the stuff that really our best gaming, our best characters, our best adventures, and our best gaming come from what we've read and what we liked and what we want to share and so on and so forth. I've talked about it. North Texas. I'm going to be running the best little cult house in Texas.
Awesome.
Which is an homage to the best little whorehouse in Texas, but where Wednesday night's game is going to be the theatrical release, the Saturday night game is going to be the director's cut, and so it's going to be very, very, very interesting. A quick start dropped on TTRPG yesterday, dude. It's a day with a Y. Which one are you talking about? I need a little more.
Come on, Dan.
Thank you, Dan, the final arbiter of vague. Thank you.
Yeah. Dan's one of our master minions, so yes. He's also an admin on our Discord.
Yes. But I think a lot of my son, interestingly enough, my son last week after the show or before the show, I can't remember. We ended up in a long conversation about campaigns, and I talked about G123, D123, Q1. I talked about A1234, and then I talked about how Shadowrun Revised, my God, who knew that there were still 10-sided dice out there that people could buy? I thought vampire players sucked them all up. I think, we'll hold the fives for a moment. But we were talking about campaigns. And I talked about the G series, D series, Q, then A1 through 4. But I talked about how all of that sort of went out the window with Massive Nyarlathotep. The Massive Nyarlathotep really was the first sandbox campaign because you start in New York and you can go wherever you want. And I think that's the start of campaigns being much more interesting. The Massive Nyarlathotep campaign, it embodies a lot of what I would call 1930s tropes. You know, the yellow peril from William Randolph Hearst's Yellow Journalism. You've got the perception of Egypt that you know, after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, there was a wave of Egyptology that swept over the Western world, the Western nations, and Egyptian everything came into fashion. You know, the mystique of London and museums and all the rest of us. The strangeness of Africa, all these sort of 30s tropes are well embodied in that campaign. And I think that's really, 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 it's one of my favorite campaigns. And it's also what I think is a starting point for spectacular campaigns. I'm a big believer that when you find something that's really interesting that you want to present to players as an idea or something to go forward. Dr. Phibes is a great segue here. So if you have not seen the 2 Dr. Phibes Vincent Price movies, they're just spectacular. In the first one, we established Dr. Phibes, whose wife died on an operating table, and Dr. Phibes is out to seek revenge. He's going to get revenge on all of the surgical team that were working on his wife when she died. Except it's a great movie from the 70s, so he's going to kill them all with the plagues of Egypt. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's perfect, right? It's just perfect. He starts knocking them off one by one, and the second Dr. Phibes movie is not as good as the first, but the first, if you have players who've never seen The Abominable Dr. Phibes, it's just a great gut punch, one after another. One of the nurses is done in by locusts, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's the kind of thing where you're literally just going to have to pause the movie, get up and walk around and just do one of these because it's so good. I think that I showed both of those movies to my kid when he was like 12 or 13, and he was suitably, wigged out by them, but they're still among his favorite movies. And they're just that good, right? They're really, really that good. They come out of that, really great English horror movie scene of the early 70s, the Hammer stuff and that coterie of actors and actresses that did Hammer films and other low budget horror films. And I think that's just great stuff. I think that's just perfect. I think that's the fuel for really great campaigns. And I think people should not be afraid to run a one-off, 2 or 3 session that incorporates something like this.
Right.
When you find people that don't know these old movies and you can just literally pull them in, I see your Douglas Pierce. I'd pay to see a Dr. Phibes Home Alone mashup. I can actually think of some things I would like to see more, like a Dr. Phibes Austin Powers mashup, right? Where Dr. Evil is not only capable, but starts bumping off all the people around Austin with the deadly plagues of Egypt. So, no, the Phibes movies were 70s. I'm pretty confident in that. I think 71 or 73. I've thought about getting a Dr. Phibes movie poster, but I got enough movie posters as it is. I don't need another one. Trying to think of some of the others, but when we talk about pulp, somebody said that the Mass of Nyarlathotep is a great pulpy adventure. Yeah, think about some of the really great 70s movies. At the Earth's Core, the adaptation of Arthur Conan Doyle's, Discover the hidden land with the monsters deep in the earth. This stuff is what fueled. What was the RPG? What was the pulpy RPG that sort of went out of play? Hex. Was it Hex? No, what is it that's at the Earth's Core? Or Hollow Earth. That was it.
God, yeah.
Hollow Earth was a great RPG, a really, really interesting and clever RPG, and then it just disappeared and went away. But if you like pulp, if you like old serials, and I'm a big fan of old serials, movie serials, try to find a copy of Hollow Earth Explorers or HEX. I think it's Hollow Earth Explorers. It's really spectacular. Savage Worlds gets a lot of great. It gets a lot of great. It's great for a lot of reasons, and it's a great, easy to run with system, and so on and so forth. But I liked Hex because it was an interesting spin on the Hollow Earth, and you set this stuff in the 30s and 40s, and you get Nazis, and you get dirigibles, and you get all this other stuff, and it's a pretty smooth, logical leap into all of this sort of stuff. If you want the great movie serial to watch, I think it's The Hidden Empire, the one where the underground city that has robots and so on and so forth. It's a Gene Autry. It's a Gene Autry serial. I think it's Hidden Empire. I think I'll look it up real quick. But all this stuff is at the roots of our hobby, right? It's all at the roots of our hobby. And I think you should steal from it literally.
Yeah, Hollow Earth Expedition.
That's it.
I actually like that system better than Savage Worlds. Both are good, but I think Hollow Earth. I have a few of those in print. Man, I haven't looked at them in a couple of years. But it just I understood the system quicker. I still have an issue with powers and spells in Savage Worlds. I can never wrap my head around it.
Phantom Empire. Apologies. Phantom Empire.
There we go. That's
the movie serial. Phantom Empire is the only movie serial. If you want a great example of what movie serials could be about, Phantom Empire is it. And it's spectacular. It's a home run. It's just great. I think you can find some of it on YouTube. It has the great clunky robots. As soon as you watch it, you're going to want to go to Pulp Heroes and order a bunch of these miniatures. And I can't say enough things about Bob and Pulp Heroes. It was one of the three. It was when they did the show in the 80s that was action adventure or whatever, where there were 3 serials. It was one of the ones they adapted for the NBC show for the season it was on. Yeah, Pellucidar. All this stuff was just great. Phantom Empire, though. Thank you, Blood. Thank you, Blue Bastard. Thank you. I don't know what other RPG news is there besides obviously what we discussed for over a half an hour earlier.
That actually was pretty much the This Week in Stupid.
Well, it pretty much took over this week of Stupid.
Yeah. I mean, we used to talk about Watchy stepping on their member, but this just it's beyond, and it isn't Watchy, so I'm very happy to see that.
Yes.
I don't know. I know there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months, which we're in that low news cycle leading up to Gen Con.
Yeah, but Origins is coming, and Origins is. Yeah.
Well, but now Origins had its own issues. Oh no, sorry, Gamma. Gamma had its own issues, but that's dealing with the pencil roller. So that's another story.
Enough of those shenanigans. We have spoken enough of those shenanigans. If you like nonfiction, I've mentioned this before, but I'm working my way through Ian Toll's Pacific War trilogy. I'm on book 2, talking about the importance of Guadalcanal and why Guadalcanal was the meat grinder that took the heart out of the Japanese Navy, particularly their pilots and so on and so forth. We were just shoveling reinforcements and planes into Guadalcanal because even if the Japanese got the upper hand, what we were doing is taking out all their best pilots. And so I think I'm about halfway through it. And again, I think it's just the best. Remember, Dr. Eric Holmes wrote 2 Pellucidar books that have been reprinted in hardcover recently by ERB. I did not know that. That's really interesting to know. The Burroughs estate is an odd duck to me because I'm fairly certain that some of the Burroughs works have now fallen into public domain. But they fight tooth and nail to sort of keep these things wrapped up and so on and so forth. I'll be the first to admit that my big love is the Mars books. I've said that before. I'll say it again. The Mars books are my favorite Burroughs books. I think the Michael Whalen covers are perfect. I think if he was off on any of it, it doesn't matter because the scope of all of those paperback covers, they're just amazing. They're frankly just amazing. I am the 3rd generation of my family to read all the Mars books. My grandfather read them when he was a kid. My dad read them when he was in college. He bought a set of after he read them all, he sent the paperbacks to my grandfather because my grandfather had all the hardcovers as a kid and then lost them. And so my dad gave him the set of paperbacks he read. And then when my grandfather died, my dad gave me the paperbacks and I have them now. And I don't know. I don't think my son's completed them, but but really and truly a great world building exercise. Now, Gods of Mars is pretty famous for being Edgar Rice Burroughs taking a poke at organized religion. But when you look at the scope of all of it, I'm the guy who had the SPI board game just because it was so filled with all this esoteric Martian stuff. I devoured the books. I made a Jatan board to try to play Martian chess. I did all of it. I think that of all the Appendix N books, that's the first one on the list where I had read all of them and I knew all of them backwards and forwards. So Chubby Funster, I did release the free Shadow Sun Quick Start this week, as Dan mentioned. It's the largest free Shadow Dark resource in existence, larger even than the original Shadow Dark Quick Start.
Oh, shoot.
So Eric, why don't we find a link to that and put that up so people can follow.
Okay, Tuna, I'm gonna have to put you down, girl.
Sorry, puppy. But I get that ERB's authorized a bunch of new books with cross-series boundaries, but I think the problem is, and people can jump in, is that I like the idea of giving people some place to play, right? We talked about Shared Worlds anthologies here. We talked about the Thieves World books and C.J. Cherry's books and so on and so forth. Wild Cards, George R.R. Martin's Wild Cards. There's a lot of interesting shared settings, but I am loath to say that I want to read other people. I don't mind people riffing off the Mars books, and I'll be the first person to say that I think Steve Sterling, S.M. Sterling's books. He has a 4-book series, The Makers of Creation, where the first book is the Pellucidar take, the second one is the Mars take, and the third one, it's 3 books. I'm sorry, it's 3 books. The third one sort of follows up on the events of the first 2. And if you love Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars books, you absolutely need to read S.M. Sterling's Halls of the Martian Kings. It's spectacular because what he does is instead of Mars was once a power and then ran out of water and their civilization collapsed into ruin, but the Martian kings for 10,000 years they ruled with biotechnology, and it makes this really interesting sort of take on things. So all of their civilization was powered by biomechanical creatures. And the problem is as their civilization collapsed, some of these creatures went wild and feral in a way that they never planned for. It's a very, very interesting take. And I also, I remember very clearly my neighbor Noelle, same age as I was. I'll let you guess what day she was born. But I tried to get Noelle to read the Mars books, and I think she got through Princess of Mars, but Princess of Mars didn't land. And if I were ERB, if I were the ERB folks, I think one of the things, I don't want to see somebody take a Princess of Mars, run it through Grok or Claude or something, and replace John Carter with a strong Earth female that just, 1-for-1 substitution. I don't think that's the case. One of the things I like about the Mars book by Sterling is that there is a heroine who is a U.S. astronaut on Mars. Now she dies about a third of the way or halfway through the book, but it needs to be an Earth female landing on Mars and having her own adventures that aren't just a riff off of John Carter or Paxton or any of the others. And I think it's possible, but I just, I could never get my neighbor interested in the Mars books because all the heroes were dudes. And she went straight into Nancy Drew. Like she devoured all the Nancy Drew books. And I get that too. I understand that.
So Greg, the Chubby Funster, has his quick start is 138 pages long. Pay what you want.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazeballs. I'm looking at it now, Chubby. The Chubby Funster.
A Chubby Funster. I believe Greg will be at North Texas this year, so
Yeah.
you better be, Greg. I mean,
Well,
Joe the Lawyer is going to be there. Damn it!
I think that's a smart way to advertise your products. Give people a taste of this stuff for free, and let them come back to you. Let them embrace all this stuff. If they want more, they'll buy more, and that's Jim Wampler said it really well. It's the old axiom of advertising, right? Your cover is what sells the first book. It's the contents that sell all the subsequent ones. And Jim's had some delays. I still and I have Terra Invictus on my shelf. I could turn around and pull it off right now. And I actually said at our Christmas wrap up, I said it was one of the best things that I got last year. So hat tip. I don't know. And the other thing that's really interesting to me is that I think that we have had a dumbing down of literature that pains me. And I don't think people realize how bad literature has gotten until you start to crawl into things like the Mars books and so on. But the most recent example that I've had sort of chucked at me is that I did not realize how heavily edited Nancy Drew is from what originally was published to what everybody is familiar with now. And so there is a company that is reprinting all the original Nancy Drew adventures in their unaltered texts. So they are absolutely spot on to what has come before. And when you compare them page to page, Nancy, and forgive me, it's been forever since I read them all, but Nancy has a bunch of friends. She has a couple of her friends, Tess and somebody else. And the characters are actually three-dimensional in the early books versus the revised, heavily edited ones where they're interchangeable and there's no real character to the two of them. Yes, Doug mentions the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think that's one of the best comic books. I don't want to veer too deep into the comic book territory tonight, but yes, let's talk about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's perhaps the most literate, heavy. It has the most literary references of any comic book I've ever come across. And almost every page has a half a dozen things that you really have to be on your toes. I was by no means a literary major, but I read a lot growing up. And I felt pretty good about my knowledge of all this sort of stuff. But whoa, Nelly, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen needs, if you ever watch Babylon 5 in the 90s, there was the wonderful website called the Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5. There needs to be a Lurker's Guide for the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's just unbelievable. Yes, the first 53 or so Nancy Drew novels were updated in the early 60s. Yes, Book 20 is doing the reprinting, and they are selling sets, and I think they're just great. I really like, if you have not seen it, Demon Flying Fox on YouTube took the Odyssey trailer and substituted all the armor for period appropriate armor. If you haven't seen that, you should really look for that. I agree that the Odyssey, I read a disheartening comment the other day. I read a disheartening comment about the Odyssey, and I agree with it. It pains me to agree with it. I had classics. I had, I majored in history, minored in journalism. I was going to be a journalism major, and I switched. Major history, minor in classics, and minor classical literature, and or classics is what they called it, and minored in journalism. So I changed majors. Don't change majors. Waste of time. You're killing yourself. But I had to read the Odyssey, and I liked reading the Odyssey. Now, the problem was I had to read the Odyssey where one page was, the two pages that faced yourself, one was English and the other was in the original Greek. I don't read Greek, but it made my copy of the Odyssey that much thicker. And there are dozens of translations of the Odyssey out there. I can't remember which one I had, but I liked it. I did not know that there are guides, but I'll have to look for that because that would just be a rat hole I'd really enjoy in the winter, but I don't have time for it over the summer. But I'll make a note of that. Thank you. I was a guy that grew up on. There's an English magazine called Fortean Times that my grandfather had. He had subscribed to it when it was called The News, and then he had every issue of Fortean Times after that, and I devoured it, absolutely devoured it. And so a lot of the stuff that was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, came up in reference in Fortean Times. If you ever get a chance to buy an issue of the Fortean Times from a wide variety newsstand or bring an issue over from England, you'll really love it. Yes, torn between Scylla and Charybdis. Yes, trapped between the devil and the deep blue sea. One of my favorite lines. I think the problem, the quote I saw the other day about the Odyssey that I agree with, is that most people have not read the full Odyssey. You haven't read all of it. And I'm not saying that there aren't people watching this or listening to this that haven't. I'm sure there are people who have read the Odyssey. And I'm sure that our audience has a lot of people, a higher than average number of people who have read the Odyssey. But I have a feeling that a lot of the people who are complaining about the Odyssey have never read the entire damn thing. And that's okay. It's long and it's a little tedious, but it's still one of the great heroic myths, right? It's one of the few of the lost heroic myths. It's one of the few that we actually have. I think that the warning sign to me is that apparently the translation of the Odyssey that Nolan is using is a more recent translation that is, I will simply say, contemporary. And the problem with that is that it's already a piece of ancient literature. Try to find a translation that fits. Now, before the kerfuffle of the most recent trailer began, I read a great article talking about what translations of the Odyssey are really worth your time and effort. And there's like 3 or 4 that they recommended that all have a different flavor and so on and so forth. But I think heroic poems need to be heroic. I don't care for films that are set in ancient times where they sound like they came from, no offense, Eric, New York.
Listen, I'm not offended.
This is one of the reasons why a lot of movies used English actors and actresses, because they felt that this gave a bit more of a Stenorian tone to the dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, it sounds more authentic.
Yes, but this is why every night I lay in bed at night and I swear and curse HBO, because I have an endless amount of Game of Thrones bullshit, but you only gave me 2 seasons of Rome, you bastards. And I'm still like, Spartacus got more seasons than Rome. And that's just a crime against nature as well, and very depressing. I wish that had not happened. But if you can watch Rome, get it out of your local library, watch it. It's really just great fun. Yes. Yes, the Trojans and Greeks speak differently, so their cultural differences come through. Yes. I've talked about this before. This is sort of a rehash of Jim and literature, so apologies. One of my father's favorite soliloquies or speeches from Shakespeare is the Henry V St. Crispin's Day speech. And I've talked about this before. You can go out on YouTube and you should go look up Sir Laurence Olivier's version of the St. Crispin's Day speech. And Sir Laurence Olivier shot this during World War II. It's a good version of the speech. It's delivered in a way that at the time was heralded as being one of the best. It's delivered at a time where Britain had fought its way through the Battle of Britain. Yes. But Kenneth Branagh raised the money and decided that he wanted to shoot Henry V. And and he delivered what I feel is the best version of the St. Crispin's Day speech I've ever seen. Because where Olivier is a bit formal and a bit stiff, upper-lipped, and it's okay, it's good, but there is a warmth in Kenneth Branagh's delivery. It doesn't hurt that Brian Blessed is in the shot and is grinning from ear to ear. It doesn't hurt that it's shot in a way that's just, it's perfect and evocative, and you absolutely understand what Henry is saying to his men, that when you are old and scarred, you will show somebody this and say, I was there on St. Crispin's Day, and it's just perfect. The Pacific War trilogy is Ian Toll, Toll. He's only written 4 books. I always tell people, start with the first one, 6 Frigates, which is the founding of the U.S. Navy and our first 6 ships, and it's a spectacular home run for a first-time author. It did so well and sold out everywhere in such great numbers. They offered him a chance to write the book he wanted, War in the Pacific, and that turned into 2 books, and that turned into 3 books. And so the War in the Pacific trilogy, it's a hard read at the start because it begins with events, what happens with Pearl Harbor, leading into Pearl Harbor and everything that's going to happen. The second book is The Conquering Tide. And then the third book is Twilight of the Gods, as Japan is helpless, absolutely helpless to stop what's coming. I think the St. Crispin's Day speech is perhaps one of the finest pieces of English literature, and I'm willing to die on that throne. And I think Kenneth Branagh's version is absolutely spectacular. I love Tombstone. Don't get me wrong. I think that nobody ever praises Kurt Russell enough for saving that movie and doing the job that he did with Tombstone. I don't even need to have movies out tonight. Let's just talk about it, right? I think Tombstone was doomed to failure until Russell stepped in and saved it. And one of the most interesting pieces of Tombstone's literature or history is that Kurt Russell went around to every one of the actors, and said, I want the scene you absolutely have to have in the movie, a scene that's important to you to have in the movie, and a scene that if I have to cut it, you're okay with. And he asked that of every actor and actress in that movie. And that's how he stitched Tombstone together. And that's why Tombstone just resonates so well, because he did that with everybody. He did that with, he did that with Val Kilmer. He did that with Dana Delaney, the woman that plays the actress that plays the woman that Earp falls in love with, and all of this, Michael Biehn. He said to Michael Biehn, he said, okay, right, Johnny Ringo, what scenes do you have to have, right? And the scene with he and Doc Holliday, where they're going back and forth in Latin.
That's awesome.
It's a brilliant scene. The scene where finally Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo clash at the end. It's just spectacular. It's so well done. There's a great book on the making of Tombstone. I think I have it. I'll have to find it. It's on Amazon, but I've got a making of Tombstone book that I bought on Amazon. Let me see if I'll find a link for it, and then Eric can share it. It picks up, and it's just a great look behind the scenes at how it managed to come to be. So let me find this. Here we go. I'll pull it up now. The Making of Tombstone, behind the scenes of a classic modern Western. My God, there couldn't be a better title if you ask for it. So I'll put this in the link, and then Eric can share that with everybody. We all have these movies that resonate with us for some reason, and Tombstone's one. That scene from Henry V is another. I think that I think that whatever it is about a movie that appeals to you in some way, shape, or form, carry that into your gaming, right? You know, when Kurt Russell delivers the speech, right? And you know, you call down the thunder. My God, right? Like I want to say if you have Disney Plus, John Bernthal has delivered one of the greatest Punisher performances in a single hour-long television show. It just dropped yesterday. Or dropped. And if you haven't seen it, it's the Punisher something. Bernthal had the idea and the director jumped in. They wrote a treatment, Disney greenlit it, and they made this. And it's John Bernthal absolutely playing Frank Castle the way Frank Castle should be played, right? He is tormented. He is tormented by the spirits of his dead family. He's I'm not going to spoil it. He's tormented by the people he served with, and all of this horrible weight is on him, and he is just trying to get to some sort of peace. And there is no peace for the Punisher, and he has a role in this universe, and he is well cast in that role. And I watched this last night, and I thought, my God, you know, Disney needs to greenlight a third series. And in fact, I went back and I watched a couple of episodes of season 2 of The Punisher. I sort of high speed watched them. But if you've not seen the fight at the bar in season 2, that essentially kicks off season 2's story arc, Bernthal wanders into a situation not of his making. You know, here's a guy who's just trying to put his life behind him, and he wanders into a situation and realizes something's hinky, and he starts to get involved, and then shenanigans, as only the Punisher can deliver. And at the end of the episode, there are a couple of the bad guys that are still breathing and who are like wheezing and have absolutely had the crap beat out of it. And their supervisor says, "Show me." And a guy brings up a video, and it's an overhead camera in black and white that shows the Punisher, that shows Bernthal. You've seen the same action from a different angle, but it's this overhead cam. And there's a moment in it where he roars, like just this horrible rage monster comes out of him. And the bad guy says, "That's somebody's dog off its leash." And it's just a great line, right? It resonates with you. Like, this is what great writing should do, is it should resonate with you. It should carry through the stuff. The best RPGs are the ones where the villains, the bad guys, they should be memorable, and they should be brilliant, and they should be smart. They can be a force of nature, right? Like hill giants aren't exactly like, you know, Mensa candidates, but they should be evil should be gobsmackingly evil. It should give you pause, right? Like the line in The Watchmen is, you know, "We're here to stop you." And he's like, "Why do you think I told you about what I did? Like, I pressed the button 43 minutes ago." And it's that horror when you read this, right? When Ozymandias says, "Yeah, like I pressed the button 27 minutes ago." It's the next page of, oh my God, like they didn't get there in time, and so on. And the throwback to Rambo, that's another movie that I think people just haven't seen recently that deserves a little more attention. You know, when Troutman shows up to try to save the small town from the thing that they have unleashed, you know, Brian Denny. Is it Brian Denny that's the sheriff? Yeah, Brian Denny or Denny. Yeah, he's the sheriff, and he doesn't realize what's happened. Like they just tooled up some random drifter, they tooled up the wrong guy.
Random drift.
You know, that first episode of season 2 of The Punisher, they don't know, like he just is a whirlwind. You know, he walks into the girls' bathroom where the two women are trying to take the young girl into custody, and one of them draws a knife and is like, you know, she says something like, "Turn around and get out." And the only thing he does is he takes his belt off and he wraps it around his forearm as a shield. And you're just like, oh, it's coming out of the bag and it isn't going to go back in easily. No, it's not. It's just not. And when we see movies like that, when we see like, oh man, somebody's coming, something's coming, and it's going to be, I've talked about, I like Mobile Suit Gundam. I'm sorry. I've got pretty much all the animes. I have a stack of the books. I've got a bunch of the model kits. I've loved Mobile Suit Gundam in some way, shape, or form for, oh God, almost 30 years. But one of the things that I like about it is it's unbelievably brutal, right? When you watch the anime, like one of the animes, one of the giant mobile suits is opening up with an autocannon, right? And shell casings are dropping out. Now, the shell casings are proportionately large. They are like 25 pounds of brass. And a woman running with a kid in her arms gets hit in the head with one of these things, and she's dead. And another person coming along sees what's happened, grabs the kid, picks it up, and runs for the evacuation shelter. But it's that kind of like, oof. I did not know that the sheriff was originally supposed to be a Korean War vet, but that would be great. It would make more sense. But frankly, Brian Dennehy as the clueless sheriff makes it much more, you know, it sets it into motion. And Troutman just trying to talk John Rambo out of the woods, and getting to the town and finding out that his friend is dead. You know, this is another gut punch. This is another one of these Vietnamese. I knew a lot of Vietnamese veterans growing up, and there was always just this, ugh, and that's tough. You know, my dad served in the army at the end of Vietnam, and then, you know, the next 10 years was very different. You know, the start of the decade was very different from the end of the decade. But good movies should fuel your bad guys. They should fuel your good guys, right? They should give you the idea. We talk about the Odyssey. If you have never read it, David Drake, the science fiction author, famous for lots of things like the Hammer Slammers series, he decided he wanted to do his own version of the Odyssey. So he set it in the Hammer Slammers universe. And so one of the mercenaries of Hammer Slammers is trying to get back home, and they have their own version of the Odyssey. And I read that when it first came out as a paperback from Baen Books. And I was in a sort of a David Drake phase for a while. You know, he had a lot of the Hammer Slammers were originally short stories that got published, and then he did a novella, then he did a full-length novel, and so on and so forth. But there's been a retelling of the Odyssey in so many different ways. There's snippets of it that come out through here and there. I would say that the best bad guys are somebody you can really find in a fiction or find in something and enjoy. I don't know. What do you got, Eric? What movie? What is it? What movie is it that gives, like, The Warriors? Everybody always talks about The Warriors and the great line from The Warriors, right? It's the guy with the beer bottles clinking them together and saying, "Warriors, come out to play." And you hear that and you're just like, holy shit, I want no part of this. Are they going to make it? I don't think they're going to make it.
Well, that, as a New Yorker, I mean, I have to say, Escape from New York, I happen to. Yeah. It's campy, but it is awesome at the same time. So
yes, abso-flippin'-lutely. And again, I'm a big believer in practical effects, and the initial Snake Plissken landing the glider on the top of the World Trade Center, that entire city is models. It's not a CGI shot. They literally made all these little buildings and made a version of Manhattan and then flew a camera through it. And it's just too nifty for words.
Amazing stuff. I mean, and that's a lot of those movies. I mean, listen, a lot of my favorite movies are like Fort Apache, The Bronx.
Great movie.
Because I was like working in the area in the late 90s and going, I know where the cops were killed by the prostitute because I know that location.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You know, I went to the bar where the inside bar scenes were filmed. That used to be Schlitz's. I was at I've eaten at the bar where the outside scene of the bar scene was. I mean, all these locations make it real. And honestly, that was pretty much how the department was at the time that they're showing in that movie.
Yes.
Now,
Mike skipped out on us, and I've talked about movies and stuff way too much tonight. I'm going to do 3 CDs that just happen to be on my desk.
Do it.
Which is so sad, right? These are 3 things that I've been listening to over the last month or so. They never have left my desk because I just keep putting them back in. So first of all, music of the Napoleonic era, a cappella ensemble.
You can find that on Sirius XM, folks.
I really, really, really like, you know, if you've ever played Empire 5, if you've ever played the GMT Napoleonic Wars game, I've played that countless hours with my friends in Calgary. It's solid. It's a great CD. Next up, The Rocketeer, original soundtrack, James Horner, spectacular stuff. If you want heroic, you can't go wrong. And then finally, my God, this is an insta buy. Whatever you do, everybody should have a copy. It's the heavy metal orchestral soundtrack by Elmer Bernstein. And
I've heard about that being so.
It's fabulous. There's a rip of it on YouTube, so you should go listen to it and give it a listen. But as a friend of mine used to say, Conan is an album. The Conan the Barbarian soundtrack is an album that you can do a lot of things to. You can chop off heads. You can make love to beautiful women. It offers a number of choices. I would counter that the heavy metal orchestral soundtrack by Elmer Bernstein is in that same rarefied atmosphere where you could do a lot of things to it with it playing in the background, not to it.
There you go.
So that's all I got. I've talked way too much tonight.
Oh, that's okay. Somebody had to fill in for the absence of the man about town, Bad Mike. Yes. Folks, Dan is one of the people that was in the chat in the audience on Sunday when I did my little solo live stream. They were like 170 plus gifted memberships to the tavern. So last I checked, we have 515 supporters of the tavern. I really am speechless. So it's a huge thank you, and a huge thank you to those that gifted the memberships. People like Dan, D'Angelo, Gooch. So thank you. Other than that, I'm in the Poconos. Videos are all scheduled. Next live stream, maybe tomorrow, maybe Saturday. We'll see how my schedule works. But I'm getting to relax. Look, I'm smiling. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to everybody in the audience. You guys have been great.
I apologize for talking a bunch. Mike usually
No.
You know.
It's the way it should be. Folks, catch you later, and thank you.
Have a great